Hey y'all, I'm Sunny Shell, and tonight Bre and I are thrilled to have Chris Shelton, a former Scientologist and now freethinker, on the show. So sit back, buckle up, and let's get to the sunny spot on Skeptic Haven.
Hey, girl.
Everyone, hey!
Yay. I missed last week.
You
so
did, yes.
yeah.
I think last week we both missed it. I can't
Oh.
remember for sure though now. It's been a week, I've slept.
So you're looking lovely tonight.
Dang, you beat me to it. I was trying to say it. It's like we're trying to figure out which one is going to say how gorgeous the other one is first, right? But you really are beautiful. Just beautiful.
Well, thank you. You look lovely. Oh, is the show lagging a bit? Let us know in the side chat if you see lag, because we may be getting some lag back here.
Yeah, we've heard that StreamYard is kind of running a little bit slow, so we're going to do our best though. But first, let's go ahead and bring in our special guest. Hello. So we are so glad that everyone is spending your Thursday evening with us. Tonight, we get to talk to Chris Shelton. He's an author, consultant, anti-cult activist, podcaster, YouTuber, and former Scientologist. He was a member of Scientology for 27 years and in the Sea Organization for 17 of those years. He left Scientology in 2012, after which he started speaking out about his experiences. Thank you so much for joining us, Chris.
Thanks for inviting me. This should be fun.
Absolutely. Backstage, we were talking about how this is a big day for former Scientologists, really. You want to tell everybody the big news?
Absolutely, yeah. Today, really, seriously, it's almost a holiday for ex-Scientologists. It was such a good day because Danny Masterson, who is a Scientologist and a celebrity, you've seen him on the 70s show and various other things, and he was convicted a couple months ago of doing very bad things to women. And as a result of that, today he was sentenced to 30 years to life in jail. He's not coming out or eligible for parole until he's 77 years old. There were a number of victims who gave testimony today as to the impact statements. They were heartfelt and wrenching. And Masterson appeared apparently fairly unapologetic about the whole thing. So he has not really seemed to have learned his lesson. And that's no big surprise.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Going away. And the big thing about this case that is so good for these ex-Scientologists is not only is Danny Masterson as a criminal person going to jail for the women that he victimized, but the Church of Scientology came up in the trial. It was all throughout the trial as a group that was trying to cover it all up. And they took extensive measures to do so. They weren't just suggesting maybe the women shouldn't go to the police. They were flat out ordering them and paying them not to. And it was bad, really bad. So that is now a legal truth that the Church of Scientology corruptly tried to avoid having one of their most prominent members prosecuted for his crimes. And this all happened 20 years ago, but it's all over the media now. So we are very, very happy to see those kind of truths exposed in the process of bringing Masterson to justice. And that's why we're also happy today.
The wheels of justice can turn pretty slow, huh? 20 years, but...
Oh, yeah. But they turn.
They
work
today. And they worked today, and it was really, really, really good.
It's also a great day for the Me Too movement for women. I believe his first victims came out during the Me Too movement, at the very beginning of the Me Too movement, if I'm not mistaken.
2017 is when the investigations of Masterson really began for real from the LAPD. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, while we're all very, very thrilled on many levels for such a great outcome and a great sentencing, and I will say that a lot of times any of these sexual violence crimes do not get the lengthy sentences that he has received. So it's just great on multiple fronts. I just want to say that. But I'd like to first talk about Scientology itself. There may be some, I can't imagine, but there may be some who don't really know anything about Scientology. So could you talk to us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So Scientology's basically like a religious group. Okay. They have religious recognition in the United States. I don't particularly think that that's right or good, but they do. This was an organization that I grew up in and part of. My parents got involved when I was about 4 years old. And so I kind of thought that L. Ron Hubbard and his belief system and the things that he would say, and some of what he had to say is incredibly outlandish stuff. I grew up thinking this was completely normal. It's totally fine. You know, my parents believe this, but people around me believed it. And Scientology is basically a belief set that you, me, everybody is an immortal spiritual being, like a spirit. And the word they use is Thetan, which is make of that what you will, but that's the word they use, Thetan. And
now, can I ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
Did you ever achieve clear while you were in the organization?
I did. That's how far I got. Was up to clear.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I grew up in it, and so Scientology is this belief system that you're a spiritual entity or a Thetan, that you have lived before. This isn't your first time around, and you've got lots of lives ahead of you. That using a body, growing a body, having a life in a body is just kind of one of another time around the wheel kind of thing. It's kind of faux Buddhist a little bit as far as that goes. And the idea is that over all these centuries, all these millions and trillions of years that you've been around, you've been accumulating all the stress and trauma of all these accumulated lifetimes, and you're carrying it around with you, and it's weighing you down to the point that you're not even aware of the fact that you are a spiritual being. You actually think this is all there is, and that you're just a body. And that when your body dies, you're no longer around anymore. And that's just not true according to Scientology. So the idea is that L. Ron Hubbard somehow figured out or discovered a path of techniques and methods that you could do that will free you spiritually, so Dianetics. That you'll not, yeah, exactly, Dianetics and Scientology, so that you'll be free from this trapped existence, and you will actually achieve a state of godhood personally for you. And you'll have the power to go off and create your own universe or do whatever you want as a fully rehabilitated spiritual being. And this is an incredibly empowering message to some people. And they pay an awful lot of money to achieve these promises of this heightened state of godhood. And I use that term. They don't talk about it quite that way in Scientology. The language is a little bit more acceptable, but really that's kind of what they're saying. And so that's how I talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah. I know. And that's kind of the core of it. There's a lot that goes out from there, but it's a big topic.
Yeah, there's so many questions we have.
I know, fire away. It's not a problem. I've been talking about this stuff for 10 years now.
He was on the top. You were in the Sea Org. Can you tell us what the Sea Org is all about?
Absolutely. So within the world of Scientology, there's a hierarchy, there's a structure. And if I said the same thing about the Catholic Church, you'd understand, right? There's a Pope and a Vatican and all these very senior people, and then there's all the believers and all the, sort of the bishops and the priests that all exist below them. Well, the Sea Org is sort of the Scientology's Vatican. It's the sort of the exclusive club of full-time, dedicated, fanatical, hardcore, do-or-die Scientologists. And they've given over their life to Scientology. That's all they do. They work, they sleep, they eat, they breathe. It's just Scientology. They don't go home at night. They live on a base. They compare it to the military, and it's sort of a paramilitary organization. And this was a group I was part of for 17 years. So we had, yes, sir, no, sir, how high, sir. And there was a boot camp, and there's uniforms, and there's ranks, and it's a whole little thing. And this is the outfit. There are probably about 4,000 Sea Org members in the world. It's not a really big group of people. And they've taken it on their shoulders to save the world. And they've dedicated their life to it, and they're very serious about it. And they believe Scientology is the only way to save the world. And that's the Sea Org.
What's the mental health profile like in a place like that? Are there a lot of people that, inferring backwards now, that are maybe suffering a bit under the strains of living that kind of lifestyle?
Absolutely. That's a great question. Because it's absolutely the case. Unfortunately, Scientology's dogma includes the fact that psychology and psychiatry have absolutely no idea what they're talking about. Like none. Like it's destructive. It's harmful to you. And it's never anything but harmful to you. So any therapy, any counseling, any psychiatry of any kind, any medications, it's all bad. So they don't have that as an outlet in the world of Scientology. It's only Scientology that you use to solve your problems. And Scientology does not solve people's mental health problems. It ignores them and avoids them and suppresses them. So you have an awful lot of people, especially in the Sea organization, who are under pressure a lot. There's an awful lot of pressure in that group. I've compared it to working in a call center all the time. Like it's just always this extreme level of anxiousness. So you have anxiety, you have depression, you have PTSD, you have complex PTSD, all of it being suppressed and ignored and assigned other reasons that always have to do with blaming the victim. So it's really bad in there in terms of people's mental health status.
That's you go over these factors like that, and it really does bring to mind like the cult conditioning that's going on here, the coercion that you're under when you're working, especially on a situation like that where it's 24 hours a day, you eat, sleep, and breathe. Sea Org, that's gotta. Oh goodness, sweetie, I'm so sorry you had to live through that 17 years. And you came out functional, but I understand you do recovery groups and stuff is that right?
Well, I don't run support groups myself, but I do offer consultation to people. I'm not a counselor or therapist. I don't pretend to do that, but I definitely can support, help, advise, and educate. I went after my Scientology experience. It's been 10 years, and I've spent every day of those 10 years either educating other people and in the process educating myself about how it all works and breaking it all down. And that is incredibly cathartic. But then also I have gone and gotten a degree in the psychology of coercive control. And as a master's level degree, that goes deep. You go into all this kind of the psychology of how these groups like Scientology worm their way into your mind and keep themselves there. And you kind of figure out how to undo that. And again, it's not therapy, but I can help people sort of navigate, some of the thorns in the road.
Hey, you got resources that we could maybe put up too? I mean, is there organizations specifically for people recovering from Scientology?
We're actually working on that. There's a group that we're putting together in the UK as a charitable organization called Cause Over Life. And we hope that, which is a Scientology phrase, so ex-Scientologists will understand that. The whole idea of all that spiritual rehabilitation is that you're going to be cause over life. You're going to be in charge, right? So we're putting some of that together, but there is a group that is put together specifically to help people immediately with their immediate needs coming out of Scientology. And that group is called the Aftermath Foundation. And they have a website, and they are a legit organization that offers financial assistance, but they don't do counseling or education work. It's just sort of, if you look at Maslow's hierarchy, right, it's sort of the bottom level, like all the physical stuff that you need help with, getting a job, getting a car, getting a place to live. That's what they help with. And we hope to be able to provide further resources through Cause Over Life and other groups that are also being put together for this exact purpose of recovery and, education.
So we have a couple questions from our chat group.
Great.
Alma says, I want to ask Chris, is it true that if you read the OT3 without being clear, you will die of pneumonia? I have it on my drive and read it 2 years ago, still waiting.
Yeah, me too. It was the final nail in the coffin, was me actually opening the PDF and reading the OT material, right? I was like, because when I was in Scientology, I did not get to those levels. Okay, let me back up a little bit. Scientology is a series of indoctrination steps called the bridge to total freedom. They analogize it, or they compare it to crossing a bridge to some higher state of being, and it's a step-by-step process. And each step costs you money, a lot of money. And each step further and further indoctrinates you into Scientology. And there's a certain point where those steps become totally confidential, and nobody who hasn't already done them can know anything about it. It's super, super secret. So in Scientology, in the 27 years that I was in, I only got up to the doorway to that. I didn't get to those confidential levels. I got to clear, which is about halfway along. So when I finally started mentally escaping and reading the truth about L. Ron Hubbard and all the nonsense, I took the final plunge of opening up the OT materials, thinking this could kill me. This could be very damaging if this is all true. But I'm really sure it's not true at this point. So I want to find out what all the hubbub is, right? What's all this? What is this stuff? And I read it, and it was the most ridiculous nonsense I'd ever heard. You've seen it on South Park with the Xenu and the DC-9 planes and all the volcanoes and all that, nonsense.
Yes.
And there's a lot more to it than that, by the way. There's like loads more than just that Xenu story. And once I saw all that and saw how ridiculous it was, that was it. I was done. I was totally out at that point.
Wow. I want to ask you one thing really quickly. We have another question from the chat, but before we go there, you were talking about the different levels, and it cost a lot of money for you to reach those different levels. And you talked about each of them as like an indoctrination. I don't know a whole lot about Scientology, but what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's almost like they hook you up to a lie detector test type of a thing. And you are forced to tell all kinds of deep, dark secrets about yourself as you're paying money to have this happen. So it seems like they are not just getting into your brain and latching on, but they are also kind of have a sense of blackmail to it as well. And
That's
the
exactly
financial coercion. So, how does that work, and how in the world does anyone manage to get away from that?
Well, you kind of have to sort of suck it up and realize they do have your secrets. And if your secrets are super, super important to you, then that could be a problem. But as an ex-member, you come to realize, that the amount of abuse that you're suffering in that group is so intense and so repetitive that you have to get out. You cannot stay in that group. And so you kind of come to a crossroads in your life where you realize my own happiness and my own future and my ability to determine my future is more important to me than some secret from 20 years ago, of some sexual escapade or something. Like, okay, who cares? Especially in the modern world. Nowadays, no one cares. But in Scientology, they still keep a very 1950s kind of mentality, especially when it comes to sex and gender roles and all of it. So, so getting out of that is not usually a hard decision for people when it comes to that point. But you're absolutely right that it's one of the things that will keep people in for longer than they should be there. And it's because it's part of the process that you reveal all of your life secrets. And this goes back to your past lives as well. And that's, and Scientologists come up with very fanciful imagined memories of things that they have done in the past and who they have been in the past, as well as what's going on in the present. And the Scientology, in its process of doing its version of, I don't even want to use the word therapy or counseling because it's just so not what they're doing, but it kind of looks like it, and people in Scientology sort of think that about it that way. They call it auditing. And that comes from audit, which audio meaning to listen. The counselor, the auditor, is supposed to be listening to you and writing everything down and putting it in a folder. And those folders have your name on it, and they keep them. And those folders are legally their property. You sign contracts saying that. So you don't ever have access to your folders or know what they're saying about you in them. And you're just kind of trusting that they know what they're doing, and you're trusting in the process. And it's a cult. So they have an awful lot of things that they do to you to convince you that they are on the up and up, that they are worthy of your trust, that they are people you can rely on, you can trust with all of your secrets, because they would never, ever, ever do anything to hurt you. Right? It's like that.
So how important is Narconon for recruitment in Scientology?
And really quickly, before you answer that, I just want to say thank you to Dan D. He gave us a $10 super chat. Says thanks all, heart. So just want to say thank you, Dan. Okay, you can answer
Dan.
Go, Dan. Okay, it used to Narconon is one of the many front groups that Scientology has. It's sort of an external corporation that is 100% Scientology, but pretends to not be. And so it's a drug rehab program. And that used to be a lot more prominent in their recruitment until people started dying. And then that didn't work out so good. That was mainly in Oklahoma. I think there were 3 deaths about 10, 12 years ago or something. And things went from bad to worse for them from that point forward. So Narconon is something they don't really talk about a whole lot anymore. It's there, and there are Narconon facilities, but it's really not emphasized in Scientology the way it used to be.
Wow. There used to be one close by here, because I'd see advertisements for it in Missouri, I think it was years ago, but around St. Louis.
They sort of rebranded recently, where they call them something other than Narconon, since the word is out about that. If you Google it, you'll find that pretty quickly. So they call them New Life Centers and things like that. They have all kinds of catchy phrases.
So those facilities do they have actual medical staff that's able to? No, it's literally just Scientology.
Yeah, it is. They might be connected with an external Scientology doctor who's a Scientologist, and that guy will just sort of carbon copy, pink slip everybody through kind of thing. But they are not a certified or qualified medical facility in any way, shape, or form. And the program that Narconon offers is actually medically dangerous for people. I've done a whole breakdown on their sauna program that they pretend will sweat the drugs out of your body. It's total horseshit.
Opioids that you can die if you don't come down off of them properly.
Exactly.
And 3 deaths. They finally, at least that's on the map now. That's right up there with the Danny Masterson thing. Let's keep putting lights on these on what's actually going on within this organization and their subsidiaries. Narconon's the one I know about. Are there any other fronts that we should be aware of that they be presenting themselves publicly?
Absolutely. Yeah, a couple of major ones is Applied Scholastics. This is a teaching, an educational facility that uses L. Ron Hubbard's teaching methods and tries to propagate this into schools by training teachers on L. Ron Hubbard's methods. He has this whole thing about how to study. And he says that the only reason that anybody doesn't learn anything or can't study is because of words that they're reading that they don't understand. And I'm the first to admit that if you don't understand a word on a page, that's going to be a problem. But to say that's the only reason a person can't read or learn or study something, that's crazy. There are so many reasons people have learning disabilities, and it's not just because of words they don't understand. But that's not what Scientology will tell you. And so they have this whole outfit called Applied Scholastics, operates out of Missouri, I believe, and they try to export this all over the world. They have trained teachers in Africa and America and other places. They've been at it for years. I think it's been around for about 20 years now. So that's one group to beware of. Another one that is incredibly invasive in the business world, if you can believe it, is a group called the World Institute of Scientology Enterprises, known as WISE. And they use Hubbard's business methodology because he's got a whole set of policies about how to run the churches. And those policies have been sort of secularized for any business. And they have a whole program, and it costs tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars to bring the program into a company. And they will Scientologize your business. And that's the last thing you ever want for your business. But chiropractors, doctors, even veterinarians, they just eat this stuff up because they come out of their medical training and they have no business sense whatsoever. And they can sometimes fail as practitioners because they don't know how to organize an office and run a company, but they often have some money. And Scientology comes along and goes, oh, we'll solve that problem for you. And so a lot of doctors and a lot of chiropractors are part of this WISE outfit, and that's another inroad that Scientology uses. There's more. I mean, they have a criminal rehab program. They have a morality teaching program. It goes on and on. The whole drug education programs that they have. It's pretty out there.
So we have some more questions from our chat, and I'm going to kind of get them through a little quickly. One is Tom Cruise on God level already?
Yes, Tom Cruise is at the top of the available services. See, here's the funny thing about Scientology is I tell you about this godhood state, right? There are 15 of these confidential levels, but actually there's only 8. Hubbard died before anything else got done. So the full godhood thing is just a dream. It's just a fantasy. It's dust. It doesn't really exist. But every Scientologist thinks it does. They think that all these confidential things are sitting in some vault somewhere, and the leader of Scientology, David Miscavige, is just waiting to release them. He's somehow waiting for the right time. And so people who get to the OT level 8, that's the highest one they have right now, they're just waiting for 9 and 10 to be released, see, and they'll pay anything for it, this kind of thing. So it's
Wow.
it's so scammy. It's so insanely scammy. I mean, you can see it so clearly from the outside, but I could talk to you for a long time about how you fall into a belief set, a headspace where you really believe this stuff is true. And I was there for decades, so it's scary how easy some people can get into those headspaces and just stay there and not question this, not see it for the scam that it is. So
probably Wes, who's Skeptic Haven, asks, how much money have people spent by that time?
Oh gosh, it's millions by the time you get up to OT8. I think if you were to, strictly speaking, take their price list. Yes, this is a church that has price lists.
Wow.
Okay. I mean, this should really clue people in, right?
Right.
I mean, it's not suggested donations. It's if you don't pay this, you ain't making it, right? But if you break it all down according to the price lists, it's still a variable amount because people take different amounts of time to get through their auditing steps. But it's going to be at least $1 million. I mean, there's just no real question about that. And often it's significantly more. And this has bankrupted so many people. People have taken out third mortgages. People have cashed in their kids' college funds in order to pay for this. It's really quite sad.
Alma asks, what happens if you are a Scientologist and do not have money? I mean, for people who actually want to continue in the religion, what do they need to do? This is almost dangerous to ask because, like, we don't want to have people go in. But
well, the thing is, it's actually impossible to, because there's a certain point where you just can't progress if you're not paying the church money. But you can do the introductory services, the lower level services for free. You can read all the books. You can listen to all the lectures. You're going to have to buy them, but you can get access to them. And you could do all of that for free. There's something like 26 or 27 basic books of Scientology, and L. Ron Hubbard gave something on the order of 5,000 lectures between 1950 and his death in 1986. Most of those lectures given in the 1950s and 60s, by the way. He was pretty much done lecturing by the mid 1970s. So 5,000 lectures to listen to, and all these books and all, thousands of pages of written memos and bulletins and policy letters and things. The guy was just, man, he could crank out the work, but none of it really, it makes a whole lot of sense, but he could sure crank it out. So you could do lower level stuff for free, but at a certain point, you're going to have to start paying.
Really quickly, we have from M2 Markles a $20 super chat. Whoop, whoop. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. That's amazing. From Timberwolf, I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. This program is almost the same as Narcanon. Are you saying that AA is dangerous? And if so, why? I have my own thoughts about that too, but I'd like to hear what you have to say, Chris.
Sure, absolutely. The Narcanon program and Alcoholics Anonymous couldn't be more different. So let's get that clear right away. They are not even remotely the same thing. There is no, you don't have to pay for Alcoholics Anonymous. You don't have to go sit in a sauna for 5 hours a day. You don't have to sweat out the drug toxins in your body. You do not have to subscribe to a belief set that involves L. Ron Hubbard's spiritual beliefs or ideas. There's a lot of things that are very different about the Narcanon program and AA. So no, I'm not saying that AA is inherently dangerous the same way that Narcanon is. Narcanon is physically dangerous to you. Sitting for your sauna for 5 hours a day is potentially damaging to your liver, to your kidneys, to your body. And the mega vitamins, you're taking handfuls of vitamins. You take up to 5 grams, not milligrams, grams of niacin a day.
Ooh, that's burning right through you.
Oh.
That is way toxic levels of niacin, as well as vitamin A, D, E, C. I mean, you're just taking these things in the gram, I'm serious, by the handful. This is not good for your body, not under any circumstances. And I've actually attended lectures by, biophysicists, like medical people, biochemical experts on this exact point, right? Who actually broke it all down for us as to how dangerous it is. And so that is night and day from going to an AA meeting.
Well, niacin, that's so reactive. I had to take niacin before, and you turn red, and and you do it every day.
Yeah, every day until you're. I mean, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I've seen people on the purification program. That's what they call it, the purification program, because it's purifying your body. I've seen people on that program for upwards of 6 months. There's just no, and again, deaths, right? So it's just not, it's night and day different.
That's so irresponsible. I can't even imagine it. Alma says in Mexico, they use the name Dianetica, hoping people would have no idea that is the same as Scientology. And I had heard, okay, this reminded me of when I was younger, and I was home for the summer vacation, and I would sit there and binge watch TV. And they had all the L. Ron Hubbard commercials, the Dianetics, and, I wanted so badly to read those books. They made it look like it was, so impressive, and you were going to learn these really cool things. Even as a kid, I wanted to read those books. So I think it's interesting she says that they use the name Dianetica. So is that a common thing?
Oh, well, yeah, it is in places where they can't present themselves as a religion. And so Mexico is a place that is, pretty religious place, and Scientology trying to horn in on that. I could be wrong about this, but I don't know that they have full religious status down in Mexico. And so the way they went in down there was through Dianetics, and they would do these Dianetics seminars and these weekend workshops, and, try to do these mass sales kinds of things and get everybody kind of practicing Dianetics on each other. And during the 80s, this was a very successful thing, but that was in the 80s. People are kind of wise to this now. But in the 80s, that was a real big thing. And Dianetics is not spiritual. Dianetics is how this all started. Back in 1950, Hubbard wrote this book, and he called it Dianetics, The Modern Science of Mental Health. And it was his attempt to take over mental health treatment with his own brand of pseudo-hypnotic therapy. And that's what it is. It's a hypnotic trance therapy that uses regression memory and attempts to get you into a euphoric state where you think you have now solved trauma in your life, and you have not. But that's how it's interpreted for you. And so people believe this is changing their life and changing their mind and changing their stress and their trauma. And it's not. And so it actually sets you on a road of further stress and further trauma, because you end up just having to suppress all your stress and trauma, right? It's a bad place to go. But this is a way they can get into places with Dianetics and not have to use the religion angle to come in. So that's why it's popular in Mexico that way.
Very subversive. Subversive way.
So
deceitful.
Yeah, very deceptive group.
So, I mean, he was bitter, right? That the scientific community rejected his methods. Just what I know from what I've read about Hubbard. So he had like a real, the scientific term would be hate boner for psychology in general.
Scientific term, yes.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
That's right. If he even let them know at all. I mean, it's actually a little bit of a controversy as to whether he just made all that up, just have an excuse to be pissed at the psychs. But, I mean, okay, I will say that in 1950, psychiatry was, pretty screwed up. So he had some legit criticisms, but that's not the psychiatry of today. And they're still using those same criticisms. So, Scientology is not particularly in this.
In the 50s, psychology was sort of in its infancy, and treating psychological conditions with anything other than locking the people up was rare at that time. So there is a lot of shade that could be thrown at that branch of medicine, at least during that time period. But we're beyond that now. We've learned so much about how the brain works and how your brain fabricates those memories of your past lives and stuff like that.
That's right. Plus we have ethics and licensing boards, and we have codes of conduct, that would prohibit any of the, kind of crazy nonsensical stuff that they used to get up to. And so, and psychiatry has advanced a little. I still have pretty harsh words for psychiatry in some ways, but I'm not painting them all with a black brush of death mongers or Death Eaters. And that's kind of how Scientology deals with that even now.
I want to ask about getting out of Scientology, because I have, I've heard, of course, it's usually from those who are more famous, former Scientologists, who talk about how dangerous it is that the Scientologists tend to almost go after them, or it can be like stalking and threatening and so forth. Did you experience any of that when you were coming out of that?
I did. Yeah. I mean, to this day, it's still something you have to be aware of. If you're going to talk about Scientology publicly, then, this is a potential threat to you, is that the Scientologists might come after you. It really depends on how successful you are, right? And how big of an audience you're getting and that kind of thing as to how much attention they're going to pay. So it's not like I want to put this out there just for the audience, because I don't want people thinking, well, if they comment on a video, then Scientology is going to have their name and come after them, because we've heard this over the years, and they're not that bad, okay? They're not that, I should say, they're not that good at what they, at this, because they're a small group and they'd only have so many resources. So what they do is they focus very heavily on the major Scientology critics, and this is Leah Remini, this is Mike Rinder, this is Tony Ortega. There's a guy who has a channel that's pretty big. There's channels around, there's work around. And if you appear on the national stage in any way, on television, whatever, podcasting, they're going to be taking notice of you. And like, for example, I have managed to sort of avoid a lot of the kind of fair game, the real intense, heavy stuff, that they dish out to the celebrities and the heavy hitters. But the day after I appeared on Scientology in the Aftermath for the first time, like the day after, boom, out comes my hate website. Right? Chris Shelton this, Chris Shelton that. And he's a this and he's a that. Here's all my secrets. Here's all my stuff. But it wasn't even my secrets. And it wasn't even true because they just make stuff up too. And
wow.
They just twist everything around. So it was actually kind of hilarious to read it, right? The sucky part, and it did suck, was that I was married when I was in the Sea Org. And my ex-wife, who I obviously divorced when I left, she stayed in. They got her on video camera talking serious trash about me. And that's out there right now. It's still on Leo Remini's Aftermath hate website, right? I've got a page on there all about me. So that's there. That's kind of fun. You have to kind of watch things when you're a critic because sometimes you'll see people stop in front of your house or looking suspiciously in your direction. And it's not necessarily paranoia when you're a Scientology critic. Wow. I've known people air tags put on their cars who have been followed around, who have had their trash gone through. People who live right down the road from me who are also ex-Scientologists. So so I can't, some of it's done covertly and some of it is done very overtly. It all depends on what they're trying to accomplish. Sometimes you don't know. I've been hacked. I've had bizarre emails. I've had, strange things happen over the years that I kind of go, well, it could have been Scientology or it could have been something else. And you just don't, how do you know? So it's a constant kind of thing that you just develop, that you become sort of sixth sensey about and try to do your best.
Has anyone ever been seriously hurt or even killed from their attempts at, just stalking or whatever, these nefarious things that they do when you leave or talk negatively about them?
Well, it's a difficult thing to talk about when you start talking about dead bodies, but I can tell you this. We all know about Shelley Miscavige, and that's David Miscavige's wife, the whole "Where's Shelley" thing.
Yes.
That's a very popular meme. Leah put that out there, and it was just awesome because it really keeps the awareness. Even John Oliver makes jokes about it. I mean, it's out there. Well, Shelley Miscavige's mom was named Flo Barnett, and she left Scientology and wanted to become what's called an independent Scientologist. She wanted to keep doing the Scientology practices, but she didn't want to be part of the formal church. This was back in the late 80s. And so she had this separation from the church. Now, Shelley is a lifelong Scientologist, hardcore, married to David Miscavige, top level, as important as it gets kind of person in Scientology. Flo Barnett was found dead by suicide using a rifle, and apparently she shot herself 3 times.
Wow. Wow.
And, I still can't get past how that just kind of happened. Just there it is. And you can look up the coroner's report online. I mean, this is available information. And that is, I think, one of the most suspicious deaths I've ever heard of in my life. So, does that mean Scientology did it? I can't prove it. All I can do is point and go, suicide by rifle? 3 shots? Really? That's pretty weird. Then, of course, you have, your more overt deaths, which were not fair game, which were not Scientology going after a person, but it was such a horrendous conflation of circumstances that created Lisa McPherson's death in the mid 90s. And then there's the Narconon deaths, et cetera, et cetera. So Scientology does have its share of, pretty unsavory stuff in its history. And L. Ron Hubbard did specifically write about a method he called R245. And it looks like it might be a joke, but then he refers to it later on where he's not joking, where he's talking about applying R245 to former members and critics of the church. And R245 is what he says is the process of using a gun to forcibly push the spirit out of the body, if you get what I'm saying.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, that's in the scriptures of Scientology. It's in a book called Handbook for Pre-Clears, written, I think, in 54 or 55 time period, right back then. And Hubbard was not kind to his critics. Hubbard was not a turn the other cheek kind of man. He was a vindictive, vengeful person. And he said very clearly, again, it's in Scientology scriptures right now, critics of Scientology, you are to ruin them utterly. So that's where he was coming from.
Wow.
So
That's
did you get
unreal.
Did you get saddled with that what they call a freeloader debt or whatever after you left the organization?
I did. Yeah, and I stupidly paid it too. Because I was still in the mindset that I wanted to keep doing Scientology when I first got out. I didn't, when I first left, I was still in the headspace. I just didn't want to work in the Sea Org anymore. I'd had enough of that lifestyle after 17 years of abuse, right? Beaten on and the psychological torments and all the rest. I was just done. So I didn't want to do that, but I still believed in the principles of Scientology until I got on the internet. And so in that in-between period, they have this thing where if you stop working for the organization, you're a staff member or you're a Sea Org member, and you go, okay, I'm done, I quit, I'm going to leave before my legal obligation has been fulfilled. And for the Sea Org, that means your lifetime. So I left, and they go, okay, well, we're going to bill you for all the free Scientology services that we gave you because you were working for us. Now you have to pay for it all because you're a freeloader, see? All that work didn't mean anything, right? All that slave labor, yeah, you're going to pay for it anyway. So so mine was not as big as some people's have been, but it was a few $1,000, and I scraped it up and paid it.
Wow.
It was one of the last things I ever did
eye-opening.
in church.
They never stop gouging you. It's like you pay to be in and keep going. You pay to leave.
Exactly. It's that crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, until tonight, not until tonight, because I've heard about Scientology before, but it's really hitting me tonight just how damaging this cult is. And it's worse than the Jehovah's Witnesses. And the Jehovah's Witnesses are pretty bad, but they don't hold a candle to Scientology. I mean, they're just posers as far as Scientology is concerned. I mean, my gosh. We have another super chat. Have you met Tom Cruise yet? Thank you, Bond Servant, for $2.
I did not meet Tom Cruise. I did meet other Scientology celebrities when I was in, but Tom Cruise, I was 3 times. I was 5 minutes away from him. It was like that. I was like, just missed him, But I did meet John Travolta, Kirstie Alley, Kelly Preston, a few others.
Wow.
Yeah.
I still can't believe that they're in that. Oh, I'm sorry. What were you going to say, Bre?
I was just going to ask about Leah Remini. Yeah, because she's a lot of the stuff that I know about Scientology comes directly from her and her work that she's done on it. So
she's amazing.
That's where I learned about the freeloader debt and all that. It's the stuff that they'll put people through. They just want to ruin you. And for people to be able to get out and to be able to get back on their feet from something like that, it's not an easy task. I think we underestimate the struggle, especially with the mental health stuff, because your whole experience within this cult is that mental health or psychology is bogus, and it's bad thetans that are causing your life stresses.
Right. No, you're nailing it right now, because that's actually true. It really is a problem in the ex-Scientology world. There are a number of people who really do and really could use and would get benefit from some education, some psychoeducation, some therapy, right? Some counseling, even some group support. And they're out there. There are groups, there are places, there are ex-Scientologists who have put stuff together. There's a group out in Portland that's doing wonderful work. So it's there, but the phobia induction, right? The fear mongering about psychiatry and psychology in Scientology sticks with people after they leave. And they might think that they're not thinking with the Scientology anymore, but they still are, because they refuse to have anything to do with those evil psychiatrists. And they won't kind of think about and update their ideas because they're in a frame of mind as a former Scientologist of not questioning their beliefs or ideas of this is true because L. Ron Hubbard said it, or this is true because I know it's true and I don't have to think about it anymore. The thinking's done. And that's the cult phenomenon, is
you're a suppressive person is the term they use, right? You're suppressive.
Well, that's for the bad guys. Yeah, that's right. I am suppressive. Yeah, absolutely. But this is all ex-Scientologists, whether they're declared or not. They keep believing the things that Hubbard told them, and sometimes they forget that they're believing things that Hubbard told them. They think it's their idea now, and that's rough. That's a rough one.
Wow, so we're getting close to the hour, and I wanted you to. I wanted to see if you had any words for anyone who may have just started in Scientology or is thinking about Scientology. What would you have to say to them?
Get out. I would say educate yourself. That's what I always say, right? I mean, think critically about what you're doing. I can sit here as a second generation Scientologist who has 27 years of work experience in that group, another, 12, 13 years of time in the group. And I can tell you all about it. I've got a channel that can tell you all about it. I've got over 1,000 videos that break it all down. So it's out there for you to learn about it before you go committing yourself to getting involved in it. And if you only go into a Church of Scientology and only hear what they have to say about it and think that's all there is, I don't know what other word to use except to say that would be wrong, because there's an awful lot more to know about it that they will never tell you about. And they're not telling you on purpose. It's a deceptive, deceitful group. So give yourself the time, give yourself the freedom to think critically about this before you commit to anything. And absolutely, positively never, ever give them your address and your phone number. Because once you do, they will never forget you, and they will keep mailing you stuff for the rest of your life. No joke. They will find you. They have amazing skip tracing services. People have moved to other countries, and Scientology has tracked them down. They never give up.
That's scary.
Yeah. So if you get if you get on their mailing list, I'm just telling you, you're going to thank me, right? If you don't follow this advice, you're going to regret it, right? You're never going to get off that mailing list. It's one of the most common questions I've been asked in the last 10 years is, how the hell do I get off their mailing list? It's a feat of the gods to do it. So, yeah. So I hope you take my word for it on this one.
Absolutely. Bre, do you have any final question or anything?
No, this has been great. I've asked so many questions tonight, learned so much about the organizations that are underneath the umbrella of Scientology and how far they really reach. Again, the stuff about Narconon, I'm glad you were able to shed some light on that. They are not I want to say accredited. They're not a medical facility where you can receive rehabilitation treatment.
No.
Recovering from narcotics should be taken seriously and not used as not sweat lodged away, because that's not any way to treat it.
You got it. You got it. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you, Chris, for coming on. It feels like we just got started. It doesn't feel like we've gone this long. There's so many things. we had more questions from the chat than we've had that we normally have. And so I think a lot of people are very interested in this.
Yep.
But I appreciate you taking the time. And for those of you, if you enjoy this type of content, please help us to continue doing more. And some of it is very simple. You can like, you can hit the bell, you can share, all of those things. And it helps those weird algorithms that YouTube has. Comment in in the chat. That helps as well. Even after the show is done, all of that helps us. But we also want to thank our patrons who have been wonderful for us: Sydney Davis Jr., Erica Zoles, Ryan, Deneen Murphy, Dandy, Michael Wiseman, Kathy Cotton, Cindy Plaza, Sunny Shell, Aaron Colson, Phil Calderon, and Amanda McLeod. We want to thank you guys because you keep the lights on. You want to talk to us about the other shows we have, Bre?
Oh yeah, we got the list up here. Oh, there we go. I was reading something over here. I got 3 screens in front of me right now. All right.
I just caught you off guard.
Yeah, don't forget to check out our other shows on Skeptic Haven. Secular Soapbox on Wednesday. Thursday is the Sunny Spot. That's us right now. So Saturday we got the Global Atheist and Women Atheists Unloaded, and Let's Talk on Sunday. And I think Women Atheists Unloaded this week. We're doing the Florida abortion stuff, right?
Yep.
So yeah, and then we have the Saturday after. I know I'm going to be talking trans women in sports. Stephanie Helm's going to be there. That's this next Saturday after that. So a lot of good stuff coming up. Watch our schedule. We got a full schedule of shows every week.
Absolutely.
Awesome people like this guy over here. So yeah.
Don't forget that Let's Talk on Sundays. That is one of the best. We just have so much fun on there where you can call in. I'll be on this Sunday. So if you have anything you want to talk to me about, keep it in mind. Give us a call that day. In the meantime, between now and then, remember to always think critically. Good night, everybody.